So thanks to the recent Battlefield 6 double XP weekend we had, I was able to rank up all of the assault rifles currently in the game to above rank 20. That gives me access to most of the fundamental and more affordable attachments for each of them. And that led me to getting my hands on the TR7, a weapon that was somewhat misunderstood until the last couple of weeks or so. When you first start using this thing, you're presented with an almost uncontrollable mule, recoil kicking up all over the place, missed shots everywhere, and to compound that feeling of what the hell have they done with this thing, it starts with a factory 20-round magazine. It's not the most appealing appearance for a weapon. But like most things in life, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, and that could not be more true with the TR7 because it's actually one of the most devastatingly powerful weapons that you can use right now in Battlefield 6. But it is extremely situational. I'm going to be doing more of these weapon videos and gun guides in Battlefield 6 moving forward, so if you enjoy that sort of content, drop a like on the video to support it in the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel because we're on our way to 1 million subscribers and you could help us get there. Also, drop a comment down below letting me know if you've already tried the TR7 and if you liked it. I'd be interested to know. So, let's give you some high-level information about the TR7 because it's a really interesting weapon in Battlefield 6, and I have a feeling that the developers have balanced and placed this weapon in such a way that, unless you're a complete aim freak, it's a weapon that's going to be extremely powerful in some ways and almost completely useless in others, especially compared to how a lot of the other assault rifles are balanced and work currently in this game. First thing you are going to notice is the recoil. This thing really kicks around, especially when you first unlock it and you've got no attachments to use. You're probably going to find it hard to get kills outside of close range, and thankfully that torture doesn't have to last too long because the first 10 or so gun ranks are now super quick to unlock, and you can get your hands on some optics that will keep the gun body out of your aim point, and then you'll get some mild recoil reducing attachments, so you can start to get a feel for the TR7, but it'll take a little while. The TR7 recoils hard upwards and to the left, so plenty of compensation pulling down and to the right is going to be needed to keep this thing under control. But that's perhaps the first point that we really need to talk about because despite the extremely volatile recoil pattern, the TR7 is actually the lowest TTK or time to kill weapon in all of Battlefield 6 at pretty much every single range. It only loses out to one of the SMGs between 0 and 10 meters. Everywhere else, it's the quickest TTK on the market. All these weapon stats, by the way, come from Swole Guy's spreadsheet, so a shout out to them, and that will be linked down below in the description. So with that TTK potential in mind, which does assume you hit every single shot when you're aiming at an enemy, which, of course, is extremely unlikely, and combined with a very difficult to control recoil pattern, the TR7 is actually positioned more as a close to mid-range option, as opposed to something that can reach out further and provide real damage at range. For sure, it does have extremely good time to kill at longer range as well, but with the recoil that's so hard to control, it's unrealistic to assume that you're going to hit every single shot you need to hit. And that's where lower damage weapons, but easier to control weapons like the DR7 and the M4A1, they come into play. You might have to fire more shots with those guns, but more consistently you're going to hit the target, and you'll end up with a better overall experience at long range. The TR7 is really not a weapon to use outside of maybe 40 meters or so. A little bit further if you're somebody who's comfortable really being quite careful with the recoil control and burst firing the weapon. You might pull off a few cool 100-meter kills every so often, but the recoil is so strong, you're just not really going to have a good time outside of mid-range combat. And this doesn't even take into consideration, by the way, the limited magazine capacity options for the TR7. Like I mentioned, you start with just 20 rounds in the mag, and you can unlock a 30-round mag, but you're going to need to do some grinding to get it. With that being said, though, I don't actually think you need the 30-round magazine to really make the most of the TR7. Everything we've just mentioned, the erratic recoil, the extremely low time to kill at close to mid-range, and the limited magazine sizes, they all play into the TR7 becoming this close to mid-range monster that can be tamed and utilized as a proper killing machine. Now, I've got a couple of different builds for the TR7, ones that support different playstyles, but I think really play into its strengths. So the first build that I've got here is probably the one I'd suggest if you're looking to try and get the most out of the TR7. Maybe you're playing a map like Mirak Valley on Conquest, and you're mixing it up between the close quarters infantry flags in the middle, and then you cycle off to the sea point out by the village, so you need a little bit of extra range as well. So starting off, we're using the CQB suppressor, the only suppressor in the game that doesn't actually hurt your weapon stats. The others will hurt your hipfire accuracy, and the long suppressor actually adds weapon sway to your weapon, some nasty stuff, so don't go using that. CQB suppressor here, that keeps us off the minimap when we're firing outside of 15 meters, and it removes that little red spotted icon from above your head when you're firing as well. Now, I've stuck with the basic barrel here. I don't feel like for a more versatile build there's any point spending any more attachment points on a different barrel when we're not going to fully utilize the benefit of that barrel. Increasing the bullet velocity would help with hitting targets at long range, but remember, we're all about really elevating the TR7 as a close to mid-range weapon with this build. I've then chosen the 6H64 vertical grip. That costs 25 points. It's not the best in class for reducing recoil and spread, but it's 10 points less than the classic vertical, which is the best in class, and it fits nicely into this all-rounder build. My main trade-off in terms of points actually comes with the magazine. I've opted to push up to a 25-round magazine here. Now, this does require rank 26 to unlock for the TR7, but if you unlock the Shredded Hope package that's part of the Season 1 Battle Pass, it comes with the 25-round mag equipped, and you don't have to unlock it. So if you want to kind of shortcut your way to getting this thing, you can use that blueprint. The reason for the push up to 25 rounds is for those mid-range gunfights where you are likely to miss a few shots, so having a few extra in the mag could be the difference between a kill or having to dive for cover because you've run out of bullets. Then you can really take your choice with the optic. I'm a big fan of the 3VZR. It's a 1.75x optic. It's nice and clear. I really like it. But be aware that the higher magnification of optic you choose will increase the perceived recoil effect of the weapon. So a 4x optic, for example, is going to make targets easier to acquire at range, but when you start firing, that recoil that the gun has, zoomed in to 4x, is going to play more into your vision. This sort of jack-of-all-trades build finds a middle ground for the TR7. It gives you those extra bullets per mag, and it works to give you some recoil benefits whilst keeping you off the minimap with the suppressor. And then I've got a bit of a hipfire build for you. This is a really good use of the TR7, I think, because of its lethal TTK at close quarters. Remember, second fastest in the entire game after only an SMG. And realistically, this basically is an SMG-style build, something you can use in games of Breakthrough where you want to really aggressively push objectives, get right up to the battle line, and push enemies close. So it goes without saying, really, you're going to be using the flashlight and laser combo setup here. I've got the second green laser, the 50 milliwatt laser, for greatly increased hipfire accuracy, and then the flashlight's main benefit is recovering that hipfire spread faster, plus you get the bonus of potentially blinding your enemy at extremely close quarters. Now, I've neglected to add a grip or a barrel onto this thing, keeping things stock, but if I'd have ranked up the weapon to 40, I definitely would be adding the short barrel for improved hipfire accuracy. However, I've gone with the flash hider as the muzzle option. This removes the red dot above your head when you fire your weapon, but it leaves you visible on the minimap, so that is a consideration that you need to keep in mind. I personally don't think it's going to be a big issue for you. If you're intent on pushing up close, then enemies are going to know you're there anyway. Plus, trying to fix this with a CQB suppressor isn't really going to work out so well because, as we know, if you're within a 15-meter range of an enemy and you fire your suppressed weapon, you still appear on the minimap regardless. So for me, it'd be a wasted attachment, so instead you can use those points on something else. I've opted again for the 25-round mag, but this time I've stuck the mag catch on the build for quicker reload speeds, giving you 5 extra rounds over the base magazine, so you may be able to net 2, possibly 3 kills up close at a real push with this setup. I've also decided to remove the optic from this build, purely to try and stop me from ADSing with it, because you really don't need to, but you can put a 1x optic on there if you like. This build works really well, as I mentioned, on Breakthrough for those tighter, more choke point-like moments where you're right up in an enemy's face, or on the infantry-focused maps in Conquest like Iberian Offensive, Empire State, and Siege of Cairo. So the TR7, despite having the best TTK in the game, isn't probably going to be the weapon most picked by players because of some pretty severe drawbacks, most notably the recoil and low-capacity magazine options. However, those drawbacks have clearly been implemented for a reason to balance the weapon against other options that you can pick, and for me, it makes the TR7 a bit of a skill cannon. If you know how to use it effectively, you can absolutely dominate people with it. If you try and use it like every other AR in the game, you're going to lose a lot of gunfights, you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to move on to another weapon without much thought. The two builds that I've suggested are just that, suggestions, and I know there are builds using higher cost attachments that would further specialize the TR7. We didn't even talk about the ammo types that you can pick, the improved headshot multiplier and what that can offer. But I think the TR7, even without those attachments being considered, is a top-tier weapon. It's really powerful and capable, and it just has to be used in the right way. As I said at the beginning of the video, I want to do more of these weapon-type videos moving forwards alongside gameplay videos, nudes videos, patch notes, updates, new content videos, streams, and more. So if you like the sounds of that for Battlefield 6, then go ahead and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Drop a like on the video, and maybe let me know in the comments what weapon you'd like to see a video on next. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you soon.